Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio, and let me be the probably the millionth person to wish you a happy February. It's February 1st, 2023, and we've got the superintendent of Granite City Community Unit School District number 9, okay, over in Illinois. I love the way they label school districts in Illinois. That's Stephanie Cann. Stephanie's the superintendent, and she's going to talk about how recent changes, this is really interesting, how recent changes to her state, which is Illinois, funding, regulations are creating these incredible opportunities, okay, for under-resourced schools to provide students with individualized supplemental instruction. And this show came about after I talked to my friends over at Varsity Tutors, okay, which is very involved. This is what the tutoring has taken on a whole new meaning in the last couple of years. All right, it's so darn important these days for not only student success, but teacher retention and teacher recruitment. Teachers they're so pressed for time. They want to work so hard with their students. They don't have the time. They don't have the time they need. So if the school districts can find a way to help the students along with the teachers, it just makes it for a much better experience for everybody, and it's working. So we're going to bring Stephanie on in just a couple of minutes and talk about how she's doing all this down in Granite City. Okay, we're going to archive the show over at ace-ed.org. That's ace-ed.org, ace-ed.org. And if you go over there, we just put our brand new issue of our Equity and Access Journal up on site. And you'll see the cover there. It's an issue that honors all of our Equity Awards winners, and we think the world of them, both all your colleagues out there in education, teachers, principals, etc., as well as organizations and companies. It's really a terrific issue, and I hope you go over and take the time to click through on the cover of Equity and Access and read the journal this month, because it's really just excellent. And all of our work over there on teacher retention and social emotional learning as well, plus we archive every podcast at ace-ed.org. So please go over and check it out. We're pretty proud of what we do. And without further ado, if I may use the word do too many times, okay, let me bring on Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. I'm Larry. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Larry. Hi, Larry. How are you? Good morning.
I'm just fine here in Maine. How's the weather in Massachusetts, in Illinois today?
In Illinois, it's not so bad. We had a bad beginning of the week, but today I think it's supposed to be all of like 30 degrees, but sunny.
Summertime and the living is easy. I used to live in Chicago. Okay, and we must be, we live in Maine, so we must like cold weather, I guess. But
and I don't mind.
Well, what was going on at the beginning of the week?
Oh, we had some freezing rain, and you know how the National Weather Service likes to tell us it's going to be catastrophic, and then it really isn't. Kind of tough to call school in those situations, but we have a lot of learning now, which could segue right into some things. So it's been good for us.
Excellent. Were the schools open all week?
No, we had a snow day due to it was just freezing rain and kind of a mix of snow. It started
you got to do that. Yeah, you got to do that. A lot of parents don't realize that you're responsible for the kids on the bus. Okay, yep. They may be able to be at school safe, but they got to get to school, and the freezing rain, you got to make the right call. And hey, I want to talk to me about your journey in education to become superintendent of Granite City before we get into the rest of the stuff.
Not making it too long. It was sort of a long and winding journey, right? I started out with history degrees and a master's in history and didn't want to teach. I don't know why. So I ended up working in a library for an environmental firm. Kind of went from there, started doing some editing, moved along. Then I was doing assessments and getting billable rates for that. Then I became an asbestos inspector on top of the environmental assessments, running the library, doing the legislative background work. Then I took one of my friend's GED classes. I taught it for her because she was out, and it was like an epiphany, and I was like, why am I not doing this? Much to my husband's chagrin, when I decided I want to go back to school. I want to quit and go back to school.
There you go.
After already gone master's. So I did. I only needed about a year between the classes in student teaching. Because I already had degrees, I was able to sub, got into a district I loved. I was fortunate to be offered a job following my graduation and started right up there and just loved it, absolutely loved it. High school English and history, and just continued on the route. And the superintendent at the time came in one day and dropped some papers on my desk and said, "Can you afford graduate school?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "Well, here, you need to do this." That was for my administrative degree. So that started that process, and I'm just now finishing up dissertation work. So it's kind of been all over the place. I did in between, before I got to this job, though, I did some foster care initiatives for kids on the legislative end. I worked with teaching and learning and student teachers at Southern Illinois University, and then I was asked to interview for this position, which really wasn't on my radar, but I'm thrilled that I did.
And have you been in Granite City the whole time?
No, I grew up in Granite City. My dad worked at the steel mill here, our legacy industry, and he was an accountant, and graduated from here, lived here for a while. My husband wanted some land, so we moved out to an area around here in the area. But my first teaching job was in Roxana, Illinois, which is an oil refinery town, Conoco Falls inside. So started there, then went to a small rural community right outside. And I did a pre-K-8 building, which was not my wheelhouse, but I loved it. And I'm really glad because now I understand sort of pre-K-12 administratively and curriculum-wise. Sure. So I think it's really helped me in this job to understand where all these people are coming from and understanding the issues at elementary and secondary. It's played a really big role in how I can manage all of this. So, and then I ended up coming back here, which is really an amazing circle.
It's a great circle, okay, and it led you in the right direction. Tell everybody where exactly Granite City Community Unit School District is in the great state of Illinois.
And district schools mean that we do pre-K-12 or K-12 depending on the district. So you don't have two different districts, one for elementary. Some districts...
Yeah, I never liked that about Illinois. Yeah, I never liked that even when I lived there, the different districts. But that's okay.
Oh, yeah, I love
okay, you guys are at K-12. Where are you?
Okay, we are literally about 7 miles from the bridge to St. Louis. So we're, right down there in... the middle of the state to the west.
You must be near. Are you near Belleville and Edwardsville and all that sort of stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Belleville,
okay. This is a great town.
Great area. Metro East is great.
It is a great area. Okay, and of course East St. Louis is there. East St. Louis, Illinois, that sort of stuff. Yeah. Exactly. All right. So now I know exactly where you are. Now tell us about the school district itself.
Okay. I think that, it was a boom town. We were lucky enough to have the Niederinghaus family initially when they came in with Granite ware. That's why it's Granite City. They actually grew out the town, I know, with planning, kind of like the George Hoffman in Paris. They drew the cities and they drew the streets and planned it all out. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful park, one of the most beautiful parks in the area. I would almost say the nicest park in the Metro East as far as size and what we have in it. Kind of went through a boom, and then obviously, in the 80s, and then again in 2008, 2009, it took some huge hits. A lot of people moved out of the area because there wasn't a lot. It's kind of landlocked, not a lot of room to build, not because anything that's here or not here, but it's experiencing a little bit of that, but I think we're sort of in a renaissance right now. We have the city's really doing some stuff. I'm really trying to rebrand the district and bring some new stuff to it and we have a new communications director. We focus on the positive, bring new things like Varsity Tutors and things like that in to help our students and help this town educationally.
I think it's just great. And I did notice, and which I loved, okay, on your website, just talk about this because this is important. Okay, feel free to help. Go recruit some teachers for 2 minutes. Tell teachers to come over there.
Well, we just did this. I just had all the secondary ed students at Southern Illinois University here for a career night. So they learned about insurance and things that they don't know when they go into interviews. Sure, would I love them to work here? Great, but I also wanted them to learn because that's what I did. But our district, honestly, we pay well. When I came in, we're like the second highest in the area. We have very inexpensive insurance for families, free for individuals, less than $250 for a whole family, which is unheard of nowadays. With a great central location. You could be in St. Louis and be here in 10 minutes, even if you're at Soulard or something. I think we have a lot to offer, very diverse population of kids, which I love. Being able to find new things to meet them where they are. And we allow a lot of teacher professional development. If someone brings something to me that looks good and they can justify it, I'll send them. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that this district should be very appealing. And I try to be out there all the time. I'm out there talking to people and trying to do interviews. We change our interview process to streamline it to make it easier to get, teachers into our district. And we've been really successful as of late.
Absolutely. That's great. I continually wish you the best of luck with that. It's very difficult all over the country. We want the great teachers to stay, and we want the new teachers to come in there and really look at it. That's just terrific. I always like to describe a district. This seems the way it always likes to shake out from everybody I talk to. What's the free and reduced lunch rate at Granite City?
We have 100%. All of our kids, all the students in the district have free lunch and breakfast.
Okay.
So our low and free and reduced is, I don't know. I should know that right now off my head, shouldn't I?
You don't have to.
Okay. It's 50 to 60%. It changes.
That's okay.
In the last 5 years, it's changed significantly.
And is it a very diverse district in terms of African American, Latino, all that sort of stuff?
We have a very very high agricultural area, so we have a lot of agricultural workers in Collinsville and Granite City.
Collinsville, yeah. Forgot about that.
So they have a high Hispanic rate too, but I think it brings a lot of cultural diversity. We're still learning.
I agree with you. I think it's a positive, not a negative. I think it's wonderful.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our new teachers, especially the students that here the other night, were really excited about that. Because they, now they're just so much better informed about equitable practices and just justice and social justice and discipline and understanding culture. And I think that's appealing to so many new teachers, and I'm really, really happy about that as a lifelong learner, and makes me happy.
That's great. And you said two things that struck me. I have to ask you. You said you're 15 minutes from St. Louis, 20 minutes, whatever it might be, 25 minutes, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay, but you've also then said it's heavily agricultural. Okay,
right.
Which is that's a nice mix, by the way. And I'm curious if you had to describe the district. Is it rural or is it urban or suburban, or how would you describe it? Just in those terms.
I worry about this all the time because it definitely doesn't have a lot of farming indirectly in Granite City, but the district encompasses different areas, Mitchell, Pontoon Beach. We have warehouses now, Amazon warehouses, which have definitely helped. But it's more suburban. You look up, 20 miles from here, Edwardsville, there's a lot of farming. Highland, a lot of farming. Jerseyville, farming. So within like a 40-mile radius, you have almost urban, suburban, all the way out to extremely rural. Where I worked, one of the districts I worked in was extremely rural, Bunker Hill, which was pretty far out in Macoupin County. So, it's almost entirely rural, but yet it was 20 minutes from my house in Edwardsville. So,
point being, the difference between urban, rural, and suburban, I got to tell you. Now, I want to get into this thing. And again, I got to thank Varsity Tutors for doing this. Okay, you can look it up at varsitytutorsforschools.com. But go over this evidence-based funding. This is something out of Illinois from what I'm gathering, and it's something that educators need to know about. Evidence-based funding, okay, from the state, okay, to get these kids the opportunities they need for, quote, an under-resourced school. Talk about that.
It's so important. It went into effect as a nonpartisan agreement in 2017 under the Rauner administration, but saying that, there were years of work, by legislators, advocate groups, school officials, task force, who were really aware of the need to change the antiquated system we had, which was based mostly on attendance, general state aid, which, as you might or might not know, attendance significantly will affect lower income poverty districts. So that in itself made it a little inequitable for many of the more urban or suburban or even rural districts that don't have a lot of tax base. So I think that it needed to be done. There's a former senator of Illinois, Andy Manar, who's a huge advocate, pretty much came up with the entire the entire basis for evidence-based funding with the help of many others, but kind of like his brainchild. So he worked for years pulling that together. So it was very exciting when this finally went through, even during a budget crisis in Illinois in 2017. We had just experienced that. So I think before, this Senator Menard that I'm talking about, as a former senator, he still works for the governor's office, he used a quote that I thought was perfect when he was arguing for the need for this, is a child's education should not be dependent upon their zip code.
Absolutely.
So that
Absolutely.
Sums up evidence-based funding. It allows for districts whose tax base is so much lower, it sort of like fills that gap, right? We have something called an adequacy target. And so, we were at a 50% adequacy target. All that means is what resources do we have, do they base locally on to be able to educate a child the way they should? Like it's the sum of all the educational costs that individually calculate through the district, and so what we don't have, that's the evidence they use. It's based on ratio of student to teacher, student to social worker, student to admin, low income, cost of living, homelessness, ESL, which is English as a second language, residential outplacement, special ed, pre-K. There's all these things. That's what the evidence-based means. So they're using real-time things in districts to decide what they need to adequately educate those children.
It's all about equity. It's all about equity.
God. It's all about equity. And before, I think districts, it's like, here's your pool of money. We'll divide it up. I don't know if you know Dusty Rhodes. She's is an education reporter for NPR.
Oh, yes, I do.
She did a story back in the day, probably 2016, 17, about the difference between in Chicago schools and inner city school that was literally a mile away, I think, from another school. I don't know if it was named Township. I'm trying to remember. But they had two students, and they transferred them, right, just for a week, I think. They went to each other's schools. And I think this is the best way, too. They asked the girl who was from the inner city who went out to this other school district, which was not very far, and asked her, what was the biggest shock to you about inequities? And they ended the entire podcast or article on this. She said they had an omelet station.
Yeah.
I mean, that speaks volumes about the inequity. She said that her school were trying to cut up chicken fingers and things and to make them into different things for the kids, right? Just showing those inequities, children are the ones that suffer from those, right? It really is directly affecting children. So
I don't know if you heard me say it at the beginning, Steph, but we are the American Consortium for Equity in Education, and we try so hard. I'm so glad you're on the show talking about this because to me it's absolutely unbelievable that in this day and age in this country we still are having these inequities. Okay, and we're going to keep. It's just unbelievable. I'm so glad that Illinois is stepping up. What was the process like for you to get the funding, and then when you got the funding, what'd you do with it?
Well, it allowed, honestly, after years, literally years of continually looking for ways to do without in this district, all the way back to the late 80s, and then the 2008 really hit hard. They were making cuts, huge cuts. Junior high didn't have plan periods. They cut electives. It's just typical of all districts across the state, right? Everybody was experiencing the same type of things. But, it just causes a drop in everything. We were as low as a 50% adequacy rate. So we weren't able to provide over almost half of what students needed that we felt like were fair across the state. So they developed the adequacy targets, the local capacity targets. It's really based on, 4 different ways to get it. But they distribute it based on how much you can get locally. So if you don't have a large tax base, you don't have any industry, you don't have any way to bring in local funding. So the state when it was basing it on attendance, really didn't take that into consideration, right? So now with evidence-based funding, there were so many other things that they take into account to decide who gets how much money. So for us, it was incredibly helpful to even be able to stop having to look for cuts and be able to look forward educationally. To me, that's the number one thing that evidence-based funding, I wasn't in the district then, but I was in other districts, and it just allowed us, to be able to look forward, especially in the rural district I was in. Now, in the where I had the refinery, we had a local tax base, right? So EBF, you get your same amount, but you're not going to get any new monies that they put into that because you already have an adequacy target of 88% or something, right? So the goal of EBF, I do believe, was to bring all the districts in Illinois up to 70% adequacy at least. We're at about 74 right now, 74%, but they still have some that are under 70, but I can't imagine what it would be like had they not done this, especially with COVID. They did flat rate.
Oh, absolutely.
2021 was a flat rate for EBF. There was no new money put in because obviously, right? But at least they didn't say, okay, there isn't any money coming in. We just didn't have any new money put in at that time because unless they put money into EBF for extra, then we don't get those extra funds. But they've been very consistent except for the flat rate of 21 since 2017. It just makes a huge difference. And those funds have allowed us, honestly, some school districts across the state, I haven't had a new school since the 70s, and they were in disrepair. They needed new roofs. Yeah. They needed basic things in new bathrooms, just basic learning environment things.
You just summed it up, just basics. Yeah, just basics. Okay, you're not even talking about the extras, and just the basics have to be fixed and kept up. Okay,
right.
And just to go. I mean, just the bathrooms alone. Think about it in the age of COVID. Okay, you got to have a clean, sanitized bathroom. Okay, where kids can wash up, go to the bathroom, feel safe. Okay, feel clean. Okay, enough sinks for every. It's just, and you talk about the basics. That's what that's just as basic as you can get. Okay, and it's just amazing. I want to swing over a little bit though. You got the money, okay, and it's great that you were able to do this. And then you looked, and to me, this is extremely important these days, and we do a lot of work with this, with the tutoring, okay? And the tutoring, to me, I got to talk about this for a second. I kind of tapped into it at the beginning, but we've got a secondary problem out there called teacher retention and teacher recruitment, and teachers don't have a lot of time these days. The things have changed since COVID. Okay, the kids are under social emotional pressures, all right, character building pressures, etc. It creates a lot of challenges out there, and if we can take some of that pressure off and still have the kids learning, and I just got to ask you, as dollars come in, talk about just how you went over to tutoring and all that sort of stuff. That thought process,
trying to get teachers with their own social emotional issues going on. We were remote for one semester, and then we went back in, and so they're dealing with that. We've upgraded. We were able to do stipends for different things and for teachers, but it was difficult with their own families and depending on what that school district where those teachers lived, how they got childcare. So trying to find after-school tutors because of the learning loss suffered, right, in the COVID era, we really, really were looking for ways to make the access more equitable, right? So if a student has to depend on buses to get home and there's after-school tutoring, but we can't afford transportation, then they're being almost punished because they don't have access to that tutoring after school. So I was looking for ways that I could make that available to students 24/7. And if somebody, for instance, if they're in the play or they have sports or whatever, they can't, or they had to go home on the bus, they need to be able to have some way and have some help with whatever work they're trying to achieve at home. So I love the amount of things that this particular, not to be selling this, but the amount of things that this kind of tutoring service can offer to students, you can't overstate it. A kid that came I got a note from a student the other night that said it was like 1:30 in the morning that they got off work. Another socioeconomic problem, they got to work. So they were able to get on the tutoring site, get a tutor with help for math at 1:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I mean, if you want to make something equitable and equitable access, don't really know a better way to do that.
That's exactly what we're talking about here. That's a very interesting little anecdote you just had with the time, with the timestamp, so to speak. I mean, it's just it's just wild. And as I say, the tutoring not only helps the students, it helps the whole school. Okay, because it takes a lot of pressure off. Okay,
it helps society.
Yeah, it's just so darn important. What do you hear from the teachers about it? I'm just curious about that.
It's still new for us. We're getting ready to
Yeah,
launch
that's okay.
in a bigger thing. I was a little worried. Like, are they gonna? We have a strong union. I have a great group of teachers. Let me start there. During COVID, they were amazing, and we've come out so much stronger. Really supported. So I think for them, we're looking at Varsity Tutors is getting ready to launch a teacher one where teachers can actually assign tutoring that we're looking into as well. But for study hall, for in-student suspension, in-school suspension. There's so many ways that students can use this tutoring that the teachers were like, it's not replacing us, it's just enhancing us.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's been favorable. I talked to my union first, my union president. Say, we're not trying to replace anybody. We still are having after school tutoring for those. This is just a more equitable approach to students that have to work, that have to take the bus home, that have other outside activities. This allows them the opportunity to have somebody at hand that they can ask those questions to when the teacher's not available.
Exactly, and also, anything that you bring in that's new. Okay, and let's face it, schools are a bureaucracy, so it's hard to bring something in that's new and different. Okay, but over the course of just a little while, people start to see what a benefit it is. Okay, and how to use it and all that sort of thing. So nobody expects overnight miracles. Okay, but all of a sudden it starts to just become part and parcel of the way it's done, and it's a helpful tool. Okay, I have to ask, what other educational initiatives has the dollars allowed you to do?
Sure, we have
tutoring. Yeah.
You have to say too, though, we have had our ESSA funds, federal funding for during COVID, and honestly, there's no way that school districts. I challenge anybody to tell me how they could have survived, at least a public school district,
I agree.
without those funding during COVID. The regulations that CDC and Illinois Department of Public Health have put on schools, we could not have done. We couldn't have afforded testing. We couldn't have paid the nurses. We couldn't have cleaned and bought the sanitation equipment. There's no way. Even EBF allows us to maintain, but if we'd had to buy and do all that out of that, we would I don't know what we would have done. Would have put us in a bad spot. So I think that combination of those ESSER funds and the change in the state's approach to educational equity have been great for us. But there are other things. So what we were allowed to do, we changed learning environments with safety, HVAC, whole new units for air quality.
Wow.
Great for air quality, but ours were in dire need of repair anyway. So it was the combination of these funds, building upgrades. We were able to get parking lots and new roofs and just general maintenance. Like we put in new flooring and painting of buildings, just aesthetics too, because I think that's important. People don't understand that you want your community to be proud, right? You want them to be proud of their schools.
It's incredible. The aesthetics is you got to feel comfortable in a place, Steph. You got to feel like you're at home. They're there for a lot of part of the day. Okay, it is home to a lot of people. Okay, you got to feel good about it, and it's got to not only look good, it has to work. Okay, and that's what you do when you start replacing stuff. And putting in new floors and all that sort of thing. It's just part and parcel of building a whole environment for a whole child and a whole teacher, if I may. I think it's great.
Teacher retention, you were talking about that, teacher recruitment, those are issues. We redid it. We have a professional development center here at the board office. So I wanted them to see what we're doing. They need, if I could have given tours, I would have, because we're really trying hard to make our schools better and to make changes to them that are both aesthetic and functional at the same time. So we're looking at some stuff. So we're doing, technology was huge. We were able with ESSER grants to get Chromebooks for everyone. We went 1-to-1, which was phenomenal. My teachers were amazing, but I was also able to pay in-house tech people to run that. We had a tech hotline for off hours. So students and grandparents, whoever was helping it, were able to do that, which put us on the same playing field with a lot of districts that have more. So we were able to then compete, and I think we're at a different level than when we started. So that's been really wonderful for our kids. CPE programs, STEM programs, in addition to the tutoring, have grown. We've been allowed to bring in some more electives. We are doing passing. We have periods of plan, things we'd be able to reinstitute because of all these funding issues. It's just made a huge change in our district in particular.
And that was so well said. I just love listening to that. And my last question is, we talk about the teachers, we talk about you, the superintendent, getting all the money. How many students are in the district? How many students?
How many students? Right at about 6,000.
That's a lot of kids. Okay, 6,000. Okay, they're the customers. Okay, I hate to say it, they're the customers. They got to come into the store every day, and we got to somehow make them feel happy about being in the store every day. Okay, so how are the kids, in your opinion, and you see it, because this can be anecdotal, how do the kids see all this? Okay, I think it's great.
Well, it's funny how we repainted all the rooms in one school this year.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So these kids walk in. I mean, they looked amazing. The rooms look brand new. We have great painters. We have a lot of union groups here that do a phenomenal job. They're just really trained in certain areas, so it really helps. This little boy, I was there one day, and he's like, "Do you want to come see my room? It's new."
Wow.
It's not new.
That's huge.
Just hearing things like that. Right, and parents saying, "Wow, this entrance is really great now. The parking's better. You've changed this." Yeah. Sometimes I think we're able to get a new football field with turf with some tips and things like that helped. But just what that does for the community, what that does for
are you kidding?
Body.
Well, the community supports the schools. It's community dollars that make the schools. You got to make the community feel proud in the schools. That's great. By the way, how'd the football team do?
Well, they about half. Better than a long time. We have a great new football coach. But the most important thing is it was the first night when we did the ribbon cutting. I had the kids cut the ribbon. Not the school board was there, but I let the kids cut the ribbon.
Because ultimately,
it's theirs. So.
And I saw you. I think I saw your helmet has an arrow on it. What's the name of the team?
We're the Warriors. So we just did the Arrowhead. We did have team.
I did see an Arrowhead. Yeah.
Tribes in the areas, but they're all gone now. Coquia Mounds is here. It's a National Historic Site. So it was one of the largest, it was the largest Native American, sorry, this is my history teacher coming up, the largest Native American settlement in North America, right, during the time. So there are mounds all around, miles out that were lookout mounds and such. So that's pretty neat to have that here. But right now, unfortunately, we have no members of the tribe in the area. We've reached out to try to do some more Native American education because that is our background. So that's trying to be equitable in that respect too.
Absolutely. It all takes time, but your heart's in the right place now. The dollars are in the right place, and everybody's working out just great. Steph, this is terrific. Thank you. It's so good to know you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. It's wonderful to know you. And continued good luck. You're doing a great job out there in a good part of the country.
Very much.
I know it will. Okay? You take care, and thank you.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. And I should have said, and I hope the weather stays good, okay? I know Central Illinois, okay? Very, very well. All right, we're going to archive the show over at ace-ed.org, and please go over, see our new issue of the magazine over there, Equity and Access. As Stephanie said, that's what it always boils down to that, okay? And we got to make sure that all the things we do make that better, and if that's better, everything else gets better, okay? Thank you all for listening. I'm Larry Jacobs. Hey, have a great day.